So real quick, I um, I like to share with you guys about heart health and concerns that I have for heart health. Today is actually Mother's Day, and I had to go see somebody because they wear a protective device for their heart because they have been diagnosed with um, congestive heart failure. Congestive heart failure is a condition where your heart has just been pumping so hard and so at a high intensity for so long that it can no longer handle the workload of what your body is requiring. Could be for a number of reasons. It could be because your blood pressure has been so high for so long that your heart can't keep up with that pressure. Or it could be the diet. You have a high sodium diet. When you have a high sodium diet, unfortunately, what happens is your body, you retain fluid. And all of that has to go through the heart and through the kidneys. Um, and so that causes your heart to work harder. Sometimes people have palpitations that makes the heart beat irregular, and irregularities in the way the heart beats can cause your heart to work harder and not get the oxygen that it needs. And if it doesn't get the oxygen that it needs, it's going to struggle and you can have an issue with heart failure. So, I was talking to somebody. They needed to be trained on how to wear a life vest. And so I went to their home to train them. I found out it was the husband that wanted the information. The wife had been trained in the hospital and he wasn't there. So he wanted to know exactly how to help his wife, which is a good spouse, and take care of her. And just to see, if he heard any bells or whistles, what does he need to do to help her? And so I was happy to go train, and I really, really enjoyed the time with them. One thing I found out is, as I'm asking her questions about her health, she didn't seem to know much information. Normally, people wear a life vest if your heart or the ejection fraction of your heart is low, meaning ejection fraction or the EF, usually a normal range ejection fraction for anybody's heart is between 50 to 75%. That's the normal range for most people. I've only seen a couple of people, one in the 90s and one in the 80s, and they were all actually older people in good health. So I thought that was amazing, but excuse me, most people don't get that sort of that level. They usually right between 50 to 75, and that's good. That's what the heart does. That's a normal range. That's okay. But this lady, she had testing done. She went into the hospital, suddenly had a problem. um, she has a follow-up with her cardiologist, but she doesn't really understand the why that she has to wear the life vest, and she doesn't understand the what went wrong that made her go to the hospital. So as I was talking to her, people they'll tell you, you when you talk to them long enough, you'll know more information about them. So one thing that I learned was she wasn't checking her blood pressure and she was not taking her blood pressure medication. If you don't take your blood pressure medication, if you don't check your blood pressure, and you don't know what your numbers are, how will you know if it's too high or too low? So she didn't know that information, and unfortunately for her, she just woke up one day feeling bad and ended up in the hospital. So I just implore you guys, know what your numbers are, know the why you're taking your medication. Take your medication as prescribed. If you're going to take medication or if you're going to be prescribed medication but you choose not to take it, you run the risk of making your blood pressures stay high, having uncontrolled blood pressures, and then the next thing you know, you could go into heart failure. You could have a heart attack. There's a lot of things that could happen, um, but you got to be mindful. So I just encouraged her to know her blood pressure numbers, take her medication as prescribed, follow up with the cardiologist, and then discuss a plan. Come up with a plan. You should be willing to come up with a care plan for your life. Okay, this is going to affect you. I also encouraged her to decrease her sodium intake and increase the water intake. If you're going to, if you want to live longer, and I remember her saying, I want to live. She has a lot going on in her life. Also, mind the stress, because stress will cause your heart to work harder too. So some of her stressors were, she's taking care of four of her grandchildren. Um, I understand that's a recent thing. That's not something that's been going on for a while. So her lifestyle has changed. She's a grandmother with kids living with her. She does have a husband, been married for more than 47 years, which is good. But it can take a toll on your body and your mind, and it can stress you out. One thing that I try to tell people, and this is imperative for you guys to understand, if you are having issues with stress, you got to find a way to decrease your stressors. You got to. Because if you don't, it's not going to matter that you have all these responsibilities and all these things going on in life. It's not going to matter. It will not matter if you die, because, like I've said this before and I'll say it again, you can die today and you're gone tomorrow, and your family is left with the aftermath of, well, what do we do now? And it doesn't stop the family. It may change the family dynamic, but it doesn't stop the family from flowing. Somebody's going to have to take care of the kids. Somebody's going to pick up the responsibilities that you can no longer do. So, somebody else will have to step in, and you cannot control the things that are out of your control. You dying is beyond your control, okay? However, if you want to live longer, let's implement some plans. Let's come up with a strategy. Like I said, increase your water intake and decrease the salt intake, heart healthy foods, decrease the stressors, monitor your blood pressures, know your numbers. Take this information to the doctor, and so the doctor can help you. Okay, so I wanted to give this information, uh, and the test that she had done was called an echocardiogram. An echocardiogram looks at how the function of the blood flowing through the heart, how the valves open and close. Um, they take measurements. They want to see exactly, what the heart is doing when it's beating, and is it beating on time? They take EKG rhythms, and they take all kinds of measurements, but they're looking at the ejection fraction of your heart, the valves, each chamber of the heart, and how is it working, and they'll let you know that information, which is important. It'll give you information as if because it looks at your blood pressures. How your blood pressures are working over time is how it's going to affect your heart and how it functions. And if your blood pressure's been high over time, the doctor's going to be able to tell by looking at your echocardiogram. But he'll help you come up with a plan so that you won't have to be alone. You can deal with this. You can get your blood pressures under control. Another thing, and lastly, if your echocardiogram, let's just say if you have a low ejection fraction, below 45%, it does not mean that it cannot change. You can always change. If you make the changes in your lifestyle, it will change the outcome of how your heart works. Okay? Don't ever forget that. All right? Stay well. If you take care of your heart, it will take care of you. All right? Bye.